Hello, I'm Wendy. Welcome to my channel. Since summer is coming up and the kids are going to be home, I figure, instead of my usual airing tutorial, I'll do a tutorial on how to make loom rainbow bracelets instead. That way there's activities to do with the kids over the summer. Once I've shown you how to make each of these patterns, I will also show you how to personalize them, because kids nowadays love friendship bracelets. So I figure, we'll take something we're very used to seeing, right? These loom rainbow bracelets, and add the personalization to them. To make these bracelets, we don't need any kits or anything like that. In fact, I made mine using a pair of take-out chopsticks. And if you don't have chopsticks, that's fine too. You can find anything that's kind of long and like any sticks that look like this. For example, crochet hooks. If you have some skinny crochet hooks, you can use the bottom of them. And you even use your fingers. I've seen people do that before. I personally find it a bit hard to move the rubber band around when it's on my fingers, so I do prefer the chopstick. To do the personalization, we will use tiger tail strings and crimp beads. If you've never used crimp beads before, that's fine. They're actually very easy to use, and I will also show you how to hide them. All right, let's get started. We will go over how to make the most simple pattern first. Material-wise, we will need some colorful rubber bands for loom bracelets and a pair of chopsticks or any sticks you have. We will start by putting a rubber band through both chopsticks, twisting the rubber band in the middle. Add another rubber band on top, this time without twisting it. Pull the yellow rubber band and put it over the white one we just added. From here on, we will keep adding a rubber band and then putting the previous one over it. Keep repeating this step until you reach the length you want for the bracelet. As the bracelet gets longer, it will become easier because now you have something to hold on to while you add more rubber bands. Keep repeating this until you get to the length you want. Next, we'll work on the bracelet with the beads. The steps are the same, but with a bead in the middle of the rubber band. Make sure you pick beads with a big hole in the middle so that you can fit a rubber band through it. Okay, let's add a bead to each rubber band. You want to prepare about 15 to 20 of these, but it depends on the bead size and your wrist size. Start by adding one of them to your chopstick. This time we don't need to twist the rubber band since there is a bead in the middle. Add another one to the chopstick and then put the first rubber band over the second rubber band. The steps from here on are the same, where you add a new rubber band with a bead and then put the previous rubber band over the new rubber band. Keep repeating these steps until you reach your desired length. Next, we'll make this one, which looks more complicated, but the steps are very similar. We will start by adding a rubber band to the chopstick, again twisting the very first rubber band. Next, we'll add 2 rubber bands instead of 1, and we will put the first rubber band over the 2 that we just added. Remember, only the first rubber band we add has to be twisted. The ones we add from here on doesn't need to be twisted. Add another rubber band and pull the one on the very bottom over the 2 on top. From here on, we will repeat these steps where we add 1 rubber band and pull the one on the very bottom over the 2 on top. Alright, as usual, just keep going until you reach your desired length. Let's make our last bracelet. For this one, I like to use just 2 colors because it brings out the pattern better. Add a rubber band to the chopstick, twisting this first one. Add another rubber band without twisting it, and then put the yellow one over the red one. This next rubber band that you add, make sure you twist it. Now add one without twisting, and then put the yellow over the red one again. Now you have 2 red rubber bands on the chopstick. Put the first one over the second one. I am going to keep repeating this pattern where the yellow one I add will be twisted and the red one will not be twisted. The yellow will go over the red, and then the first red will go over the second red. You can already start to see the pattern form. The yellow ones we added forms a circle, and the red one acts like a chain connecting all the pieces together. I also made one with pink and white. When I use only 2 colors, I feel like the pattern really stands out. I also made one with random colors, and it's hard to see in that one. So I think it's better to stick with 2 colors if you were to do this bracelet. Now that we have finished the bracelets, let me show you how to finish them off. After this, I will show you how to personalize the bracelets. If you have gauge 18 or 20 wire at home, then we can make a jump ring. If you don't have wires, you can buy plastic S-shaped closures. I will include a link in the description. Form a circle with the wire. You can form the circle using a plier or a shaping mandrel or even a pen. You just want to make sure that the circle is big enough to fit the rubber bands. Once you have formed the circle, cut the wire with a wire cutter, and now you have your jump ring. This bracelet is slightly different from the other 3, where the bottom of this bracelet is a bead, while the other bracelets, the bottom is a rubber band, and you can simply put this rubber band through the jump ring. So before we add the jump ring, we'll put a rubber band through the bottom bead first. And now we can put the jump ring through the rubber bands on each end of the bracelet. Make sure you close the jump ring nice and tight so that the rubber bands don't come out easily. And again, if you have 18 gauge wire, make sure to use that so that the jump ring doesn't open up easily. Now let's personalize the bracelets. As I mentioned earlier, we will use tiger tail strings. The ones I have here are 0.5 mm in diameter. We will also need some crimp beads. The ones I have here are 2.5 mm, which I think is actually a little bit too big. I would prefer 2 mm. Just make sure you get ones that have a big enough hole size to fit 2 strings through it. And of course, we'll need beads with letters on it so that you can form the words you want. And I'll be using these big beads we used earlier to hide the crimp beads. Since we'll be adding beads, we don't need to start with too long of a loom bracelet. We just need one that is about half the length. For this loom bracelet pattern, we'll end with 2 rubber bands on top. So what we're going to do is we will put the bottom rubber band over the top rubber band so that there's only 1 rubber band on top. The top and bottom of the bracelet will look like this after you remove it from the chopstick. We will start by putting the string through the side that is loose so that the rubber bands doesn't come apart. Next, we'll add a crimp bead, putting the crimp bead through both ends of the string, creating a loop with the string. You want to form a very small loop with the string. You don't want to tighten it so much where there's no space left. If the string is too tight, it might cut through the rubber band and break it. So you do want to make sure that there's some wiggle room here. To close the crimp bead, professionals will tell you to use a crimping tool. But crimping tools do cost about $15, and if you don't plan on doing this often, then I don't really suggest buying a crimping tool because it'll just end up sitting there, especially after spending so much on it. You could use a chain nose plier, which only costs about $5. Just make sure that you don't squeeze too hard when you are closing the crimp bead, otherwise it could break. And make sure you get a chain nose plier that is smooth here. Don't get ones with a teeth. That way it doesn't scratch the crimp bead or break it easily. Before you close the crimp bead, make sure the strings are next to each other and not on top of each other. I don't know if you can see in this video here. When the strings are next to each other, when you push down on the crimp bead, it will become flat like this. And now you can see the strings are next to each other. You can also see that my crimp bead is quite big. That's why I prefer a 2 mm instead of this 2.5 mm. But this was the only one they had at the store. Now we will add this big bead to hide the crimp bead, and then we will add the letter beads based on whatever word you want to spell. The first 2 to 3 letter beads that you add, make sure to put it through both strings, and then we'll cut off extra strings later. Okay, so I've added all my letter beads. Now I will add a big bead and a crimp bead. It doesn't matter if you add the big bead first or the crimp bead, since the crimp bead will just fall right through the middle of the big bead. Now we'll put the string through the other side of the bracelet. Now that we have the string looped around the rubber band, we are going to put the string back through the crimp bead. Try to tighten your string as much as possible, making sure that the loop isn't too big. Otherwise, there will be gaps between your beads and the string will show. Once you have examined that there are no gaps between the beads and that the string is not showing anywhere, you can close the crimp bead using the chain nose plier. Next, put the string through 2 to 3 letter beads to hide it. Get as close as possible to the wire and cut off the extra wires. You can see here, you can simply slide the big bead over to hide the crimp bead. I hope the instructions were clear. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye!